Hey everyone, welcome back to another lecture in which we'll talk about Visualforce, and this video is pretty much all about Visualforce for beginners, people who do not know anything about how Visualforce pages work and how do we embed them into Salesforce and how do we use them, how do we use the common commands. This particular video is for all of you guys. So Visualforce guide to using VF pages and components in Salesforce, right? First of all, let's understand what is Visualforce. A web development framework that allows you to create custom user interfaces that can be used in the Lightning platform. So you can consider this as a framework that will allow you to create custom UI screens or user interfaces using the web development framework. Now the web development framework can be nothing but HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and the styling, right? You can use all of those elements and you can configure or create something that's custom, and that's for the end user to look and use. Now each Visualforce page can be accessed or is accessible by a unique URL, which means every Visualforce page is designated a specific URL that you can use to open the page. Alright, now VF page, I will use VF as the shortcode for Visualforce. So VF pages use tag based markup. So tag based markup, where else have we seen that? We have seen it in HTML, we have seen it in XML, right? So these are tag based markup, which is pretty much similar to HTML, and each tag has its own properties and it corresponds to a user interface element. So similar to how in basic HTML you have something called a div, right? That is basically nothing but a division. You have the BR tag to break, you have the horizontal line tag, you have different tags, right? Similarly, Visualforce pages are also made up of their own tags, and these tags have their properties. We'll take a look at what these tags are and how they are written. We'll take a look at it, but you can consider them to be elements such as a block, a section, a list, or a row, right? And many more. So there is a lot of flexibility as the Visualforce markup can easily be mixed with generic HTML, JavaScript, and CSS, which means the standard typical web development framework that we have that contains HTML, plain HTML code, JavaScript code, and then we have CSS for styling. It can be clubbed with the Visualforce markup and can be used collectively. Alright, so this is what provides flexibility in creating custom screens by not just using the tags that VF provides, but also the generic languages that we have. Visualforce has nearly 150 built-in components that we can use on the page to build custom screens and pages. Alright, so if I were to take you to creating a Visualforce page, let's create a Visualforce page and let's just say hello world. Let's see how this can be done on Salesforce, right? So you can go to VS Code and you can create things here, but I will take you through the developer console and I'll show things on the developer console and on the org browser, right? So if I were to show you where do we see all the Visualforce pages, you can simply type in Visualforce here, and under custom code you will see Visualforce components and Visualforce pages, right? We'll be looking at Visualforce pages. You should see the list of all the VF pages that have been created for now, right? Now what we are going to do is we are going to create a new one for ourselves. These are standard ones that come with an org, so we'll go ahead and create one for ourselves. So I'm on the developer console, and how do you create a VF page? Similar to how you create everything else, the way you create Apex classes or Lightning components or anything else, you have an option to create a Visualforce page. When I click on Visualforce page, it prompts me to ask and tells me, give it a new Apex page. I'll say my first VF page and say okay. So this is of the extension .vfp, Visualforce pages, right? And the components are of the extension VFC, that is Visualforce components. And as you notice, a basic tag, which is the page tag, has come up on the screen automatically. And this is what contains the entire page. So whatever we mention here, so the markup would be pretty much similar to how we write HTML. This would be the entire VF scope, right? This would be the VF page scope. And whatever you write inside here will be part of this particular VF page. All right, cool. What is our first use case? We wanted to simply say hello world, right? So let's go ahead and try doing it. So I'll just say hello world, save. So as soon as I save it, if it saves without any errors, which it did, I can click on this preview button here and I can click on preview. And if you see, the page will open up and we'll see the hello world coming up, which is right here. Alright, we talked about VF pages having a generic URL, not a generic but a unique URL. If I take a look at this URL, you'll notice that the base URL, which is this right here, is followed by Apex, followed by /. After that, you have the name of the Apex page, or rather the VF page, right? This is in turn the unique URL every VF page gets. If you create another page, let's say my second VF page, so the URL would be my second VF page for that particular page. All right. So every VF page gets its own URL, and the VF page, for VF pages, the URL is an important identifier. We'll talk about that in a while. Why is that so? Okay, because there are a lot of parameters we fetch from the URL itself for processing things. Cool. So what we did was we just simply created a VF page. We just added one simple line of text and we clicked on the preview button. Now the beauty of developer console and this VF page integration here is that whatever we change, the preview will automatically be updated. So if I just say hello world's kept and I say save. So as soon as this saves, you'll see hello world's kept re-rendered here. So your VF page is automatically refreshed. You don't have to click on the preview button every time. All right. Let's take a look at what's next. So editing a Visualforce page. Now what we did here was very basic. We just simply added one element, which was a simple text. Let's get rid of this text and let's get rid of this comment. What I want to do now is I want to use some elements and I want to edit my page. So like I said, Visualforce has about 150 built-in components, right? Now these components all start with the apex colon namespace, right? So you see that the tags will always be apex colon something. So this represents a page. Similarly, if you want to start a tag, you have the autocomplete function and you can simply say apex colon. Let's say I want to type in input. So I see, okay, these are all the options that I have, right? Let's say I want to type apex colon page block. So I have these options. So if I want to create a table, I can use this. If I want to create a block, I can use this. If I want to create a section, I can use this particular option here, right? And all of this is embedded into Visualforce and we can simply use it. What I'm going to do now is I'll try to show you certain components so that you see how things build up. So I'll use a page block first of all. All right. So to create a segment, you simply define a page block and I'll just say page block title is equal to block 1. Let's save it. All right, this should save up fine. Let's see. Yeah, and now if I go back to my page, you see a block is created with a fancy styling automatically, right? You see a black horizontal line on the top and then you see this gray shade coming up. Similarly, inside a page block, what we can do is we can create sections. So you can have sections here. So you can picturize it, right? A block inside which you would have sections. So to have a section, another important thing you see that you have the auto-complete option available here. So you don't have to remember or type everything. So if I simply type page block, I see that the section tag is available, and I can use this particular tag. All right, and there are two ways of closing every tag. You see the tag closure is mandatory because it is a tightly bound markup. So you can either close it like this or you can simply close it here itself. You don't have to write another tag separately. You can do this. See, so the color compiling is also working accordingly. If you make any error, you see everything is red down below. But if things are right, everything is green, right? So I've defined a section for myself. Now here I want to just add section 1. All right, and let's say I want to create one more section inside my block, so I'll just call it section 2. Now let's save it and let's see how this looks like. So I've created a block and inside the block I've created two sections. So you see section 1 and section 2 is here. All right, what if I wanted to have them side by side? I can simply define columns here. And that brings me to another point. What you can do is as soon as you press space, you see all the available parameters that you can set on this particular element or this component. So you see I can set a title. I can say section display and say save. So once I save this, you see that section display comes up automatically with what Salesforce does with the VF, and it is collapsible also. So you see section 1 is automatically collapsible because this particular title and this particular block section has been created for section 1. All right, what other parameters can we set here? So you see you have columns. So if I say columns and I say 2 and I say save, let's see what happens. So I have not defined two things, but if I go ahead and try doing that, let's try to bring some items. So as we have defined a page block first of all, and then we have defined a section inside it, what I can do within this section is, let me get rid of some code and let's call this section 1, and inside this section I can define section items. So I'll say page block section item. This is another command, another component you can use, and I'll say item 1 here. Save. All right, and let me define one more item so that you understand the relevance of the columns tag that we put in here. So this says that your grid will be divided into 2 columns, item 1 here and item 2 here. Let's try to save it. Let's see what comes up now. So you see item 1 here and item 2 here. Why is this now on the same line? Because we have defined columns as 2. If I did 3, I could define one more item, and accordingly Salesforce would take care of the spacing and alignment of everything. So you see, as soon as I say columns 3, item 2 comes in a little bit towards the left so that there's space for the third element. All of it being tracked and maintained by Salesforce. Cool. So that was about page blocks, page block sections, and page block section items. Now, if you want to take a look at the compilation here, if let's say you try doing something like this, let's say you want to create a section item and you do this and you try to save it. Let's see what happens. So you see, as soon as you save it, even though this shows green, but the compilation fails with a problem. There's one problem down here. What is the problem? It says that the tag must be between. It does not give the entire error properly, but it is important to understand that some elements can only be inside specific elements, which is why on the top you would always have to have a page block if you want to use a page block section. Similarly, to have a page block section item, you would want the page block section on the top, and that's how the nesting would work, and only then the elements would be understood and compiled. All right, we cannot simply just define section items here on the outside. That does not work. Cool. Let's try to save this now. This works fine. Just how we have different parameters here for the page block or every other component that we're using, you have the same for the Apex page tag also. If I click on the page tag and say space, you see these are all the options. This is everything that I can set. All right. So if you see, what we are noticing here is there is some level of standard styling that Salesforce is doing with the Visualforce based on whatever elements we're using. Right? If I want to get rid of this, I can simply say for this particular page, the standard style sheets should be set as false, which means I don't want to use whatever Salesforce has given me. I'll create everything custom as per my requirements. And once I do that, you see everything goes away, and this is plain HTML. No CSS, no styling added from Salesforce. All right. And it is true by default, but if I set it to true explicitly, it will show up again in the way Visualforce is set up in terms of styling by Salesforce. This one is collapsible, and you can see everything is a bit decorative. All right, let's go back and let's see. We talked about page blocks, page block sections, and items, right? What is the next thing? Some basic features is title, rendering, page level tags, and style sheets. All right, so title, we already gave a title, right? Every element mostly has a title tag, so you can give a title here, you can give a title to the section, you can even give a title to your, can I do that? No, it does not have a title tag here, but it might have, yeah, it does have the label title, right? So you can take a look at all the parameters that are available, and accordingly you can set the values. You have some event listeners here. Whenever you click on the data, whenever you press the down key or press the key or press the up arrow, or you do a mouse action, you can accordingly handle some events and play around with it. All right. What if you wanted to show certain items and not all of them? So how would you do that? You would use the rendered element or rendered tag. So let's say here, if I take a look at this particular use case, I don't want to see section 2, right? So section 2 is part of this particular section. I can simply say rendered equals false. And once I save it, this is part of the script, but it will not show up because it is set rendered as false. So don't show it basically. That is how you can render, or you can dynamically show or hide components. Right now I'm just showing it to you with true and false, but you can actually do it dynamically based on certain values that you receive from the form. Okay, let's say if item 2 is selected only, then you want to show it. So you can use that dynamic behavior to display this in terms of what values are set on the form or what is coming from the database also. All right, that's how rendering works. We talked about the title, we talked about rendering, and on the page level, you have page level tags. So if I want to add some more tags before that, let's see if I can show you something else. So we talked about the basic features. Okay, next is binding variables. All right, so title, rendering, page level tags, and style sheets. So for page level tags, I also wanted to add 2 more tags that are important most of the time. So there's something that's called a show header, and there's something that's called show sidebar, or just sidebar, I believe. Show sidebar, right, equals false. So what are these 2 tags? Whenever you're using Visualforce, what normally happens is, if you embed your Visualforce component or a page inside a specific place, what you normally see is this particular screen, right? Let me switch to classic first of all. So this is how your classic UI looks like, right? You have a standard header and you have a side panel. And then if you want to embed something here, you would put it somewhere here. So what if you do not want this header to be fixed? Because you see this travels with you everywhere. Even if you go to contacts, opportunities, you open anything, this header is fixed. But for Visualforce Page, if you have a requirement that you don't want to see this section sidebar or the header, you can simply put the tag show header equal to false and sidebar equal to false. What this will do is this will ensure these two sections are hidden when your Visualforce page is being displayed. All right, that was about the page level tags that you can add, and there are a lot many tags as and when you need one, you can use them. All right, we'll take a look at some more of them in the coming PPT, but for now we should be good. All right, let's go back and let's see what's next. So binding variables. As of now, what we have done is we have only seen everything static, right? Let me just close this Visual Studio Code. Let's go back to Dev Console, and now let's see the VF page. So right now what you see mostly here is just a static page, right? Let's say I want to just add this. Let's say I duplicate it here and I call it section 2, and I add columns 4, item 1, item 2, and then here item 3 and item 4. Let's say save. All right, I should start seeing two sections now. Let's see. So you see section 1 and 2, one has 3 column divisions and 2 has 4 column divisions. So you see everything here, right? And now it is 3 and 4. It's pretty much static. You do not see any data coming from the database, and nothing is being dynamic in terms of behavior, right? How do we achieve that? So for us to be able to achieve that is what we're trying to understand here. So you have something that's called merge fields. So let's go ahead and try see that what this thing is. So to ensure that you have a dynamic behavior, what you tend to do is you simply use this notation, annotation. Curly braces, exclamation, followed by curly braces closed. This is called a merge field, right? And this is used to bind variables or bind data into your Visualforce page. You can use this concept. How do we use it? I'll quickly show you. Now let's say we want to show information from the account object. Let's go to Dev Console and let's click on save one more time. Let's get rid of this particular tag. It's not necessary because it's set to true by default. Get rid of this particular section. All right, or let's get rid of this entire section that I've created because it is pretty much static. Let's get rid of it. So now it's pretty much a blank page. Let's save and let's see if it is a blank page. It is a blank page. All right, now what I want to do is I want to show information from an account record, or let's say from a contact record. So I'll simply type ID comma name from contact limit 1. So let's say I want to see user 1. Okay, let's get something better, limit 5. So I see Rose Gonzalez, right? Let's copy this record ID and let's close this query. All right, let's store this ID here as a comment so that we can use it every time. All right, so now what we're trying to do is we are trying to show some contact information. Now how do you do that? So Visualforce have something that's called standard controller. Do I have it later on my screen? Let's see. Conditionals using standard controllers is here. All right, then let's do something. Let's keep that for here. I'll start showing you a basic bind variable concept. Okay, so a basic bind variable concept would be nothing but using the merge field concept, and you can simply say something like this. All right, and what if you wanted to use a function? You can simply say today. Let's click on save. Does it work? Let's see. So it's saved, and this should give me the date timestamp for today. So you see how I called a formula, and using the merge field concept, it understood, okay, I have to bring the current date time value from the system and show it on the screen. That's what it did. What if I wanted to see who's the current logged in user? So if I just simply say user dot first name, this might not work, but let's click on save so that I can show you that there will be an error that comes up, right? So you see there's a problem, and I see that it says unknown property user.firstname. So anything that you want to fetch from your org or your global actions, you have to use the dollar variable. So now this becomes a dollar action, and it understands that you are referring to the user object. All right. Similarly, you can call profiles or any other global action that's available or global object, and you can refer it directly on your VF page. So what if I wanted to say hello to the logged in user, hello first name, and let's say save. So whoever is the logged in user, the first name of the user's name will come here. So it says hello Himanshu, right? So you're able to dynamically set values. How? By using the dollar variable, dollar character, by using a global action, and the most important of all, you are using a merge field. Now what is a merge field? A merge field is nothing but this particular notation. All right, so this is the merge field notation. This is called a merge field, and you'll use this for pretty much everything that you want to bind to your VF page. All right, so that was about merge field concept, using dollar values for global values and case sensitivity. So the thing is, with VF page, you do not have case sensitivity here. Right now, if you notice, let's get rid of this date, and let me create a div here, and let's get this inside the div. So div is a normal HTML element, and let's say I want to get the last name also from the user country also. Okay, so I should get the country code at least. So let's see, and I have to use the dollar variable so that I can reference the user object, and I'll say save. So now this should say hello Himanshu Maheshwari from IN or India maybe, right? Let's see. Let's see the U, and it says hello Himanshu Maheshwari from IN, right? The hyphen is not needed, so let me just get rid of it. So that's how you can use the merge field. But my important point here is that even if you say FIRSTNAM capital and E is small and everything here is small, this will still work as is, because this is not case sensitive. You still see the same information. So these merge fields are not case sensitive. They only want the right information. What if I do something like this? I remove the E. Now I am misspelling the API name, and that's when it gives me the error saying first name probably not found. The field does not exist. So it's not able to reference the field. So you have to have the API names correct. That's all. Case sensitivity is not important. All right. Cool. Let's get rid of all of this, and let's take a look at our next topic. Let's go back to our keynote and let's see what's next. So here, simple formulas in VF page, like I already showed, you can use today function to show the current date. You can use concatenation, and you can show multiple strings together. You can use the plus icon to do that. All right, nothing fancy there. Conditionals in VF pages show logged in user's name based on user active flag. So how do you show conditional information? Let's say if the logged in user's country is India or IN, only then say them namaste, right? Or else say hello, something like this. So how do you do that? So you use the if condition. So there's something that's called if condition. So I can simply use if, and this takes in 3 parameters. It takes the expression and then logical value 1 or else logical value 2. Basically, if this is true, then it will accept this value or it will accept this value. So I can simply have hello as the third value, namaste as the primary value, and what's my criteria? My criteria is if within the merge field the current user country is equal to IN. If this is true, then it should show namaste or it should show hello. Let's see if this saves. The saves are fine. Let's see. It's showing me the entire value, which is wrong. It's showing me the entire value, which means, see, it's evaluating to true, but it is giving me the entire string. So instead, let's do something. Let's use a field to display our value. So output text, and I'll close it on the markup itself. And here I'll use this value to display. I can use the value tag, I believe. Let's see. Do we have a value? Yes, we have a value. I'll paste it here and say save. Let's see what does it display. It still displays the entire string. So I believe the if condition is supposed to work. Let's see. Let's get rid of these apostrophes and let's see if this works now. It still shows me the entire string, which is weird. Ideally it should show what is the if condition value. As soon as we are stuck somewhere, we can simply use the documentation. So I'll just say if condition in Visualforce. Maybe I'm missing something. So if condition is in Visualforce, let's take the first example. So we have done something similar, but let's see. I don't see anything relevant here. So let's go back. Let's use the render tag maybe. That's what one person said. Or let's simply do something. If the user is currently active, I'll call it namaste. Oh, I think what the issue is. Let's save this and let's see if it works. This is saved. So it does not show anything right now, even though the user is currently active. Let's get rid of the output text. I think I understand what the issue is. What if I save this now? It is saved, but it is showing me the entire value, right? So if user dot is active, what I want to do is I want to show namaste, or I want to show hello, right? And this value of if condition will not be outside, this will be here. This is where it should be, right? So everything will go inside the merge field to be calculated. I think that's the issue. Let's try to save this and now let's see what happens. So it's showing me namaste, right? My issue was I had the if clause outside, but it should be inside because you are doing your dynamic calculations, which should be part of the merge field. It should not be outside. It's not able to figure out that, this is a if condition. It is simply understanding this is a simple if character. So it's starting to display it. All right. So that's how you can show conditional information on your Visualforce page. Cool. All right, let's take a look at what's next. So how do you preview Visualforce page on the Lightning UI? Now what I have shown you here is the classic UI right here. And how are we displaying things? We are simply using the preview button. But ideally you would be using this page inside your Salesforce org, right? And you might be wanting to use it on the Lightning experience. So how do you see it on the Lightning experience? For classic, it is pretty much simple. What do? You simply go to the URL, you say apex / and you simply type the name of your VF page, which is my first VF page. If I get rid of everything here and press enter, this will show me namaste or whatever is showing up right now, right? But how do I see this on Lightning? Lightning does not have the same concept. For Lightning, if you want to just do a preview, we can use the JavaScript console on the browser, and Lightning has a function that's called navigate to URL. So I'll simply say $a.get e.force. Under the force platform, I have something that's called navigate to URL, right? And this is the function I'll be using, and I'll set params here. And what are the parameters I'll set? I just have one parameters to set, which is the URL. So what should be the URL? I'll simply say whatever is the current URL, just append apex / my first VF page. That's the name, right? Yeah. And then I'll just fire this event. So you see, as soon as I fire it, it reloads my page, and now under the Lightning component, Lightning experience, I see my namaste tag coming up from my VF page, right? What did I do? I simply used the Aura framework by using the $a, and I just said $a.get. I wanted to use an event from the Aura framework that is under the force ID. I used the navigate to URL and just set one parameter that my URL should redirect to apex / my first VF page. And as soon as everything was ready, I would say just fire my event. And as soon as it fired it redirected it to the VF page. Cool. So that is how you can redirect your VF page in Lightning experience. If you have to use this on the Lightning component, you can simply use the statement also. Cool. Let's go back to classic and let's go back to our keynote. What's the next thing? Using standard controllers. This is what I was wanting to show you a bit earlier, but let's start this now. Dynamic behavior of pages based on controllers. Again, everything is still static, nothing fancy. It's all static, but is this all relevant? For understanding basics, yes, but not for real time, right? What happens really is you want to use them with objects. So to be able to use them with objects, you have something that's called a standard controller. Now every VF page supports a standard controller, and when I mean standard controller, it means you can associate your VF page with a specific object, right? Let's say I want to associate it with contact. You have to mention the API name of the object. So I can simply say standard controller equals to contact, right? What did it do? It just understands that this page is supposed to show contact object record information. Which record? We'll take a look at that in a while. Okay, for now just understand this page will provide you information about the contact object. Cool. Let's take a look at what we are supposed to do. Dynamic behavior of pages based on controllers. All right, so now that I have the standard controller equal to contact defined, what I can do is I can again use merge fields, and this time I can use the same API name of my object, which is contact, and followed by the dot operator, I can call my fields and I can say save. So if you see, this will save successfully. But what if I remove the standard controller from here and say save now? This shows an error, right? So this contact collection attribute that we get is only because we have defined the standard controller as contact. So the page is intelligent enough to understand that this should be contact.firstname, which means they are wanting to access the first name of a contact record. Similarly, I can get the last name or any other value of that sort from the contact object, right? I could have the phone information, right? What if I do another typo? It will start showing me an error. So I have to call all the actual values or actual fields. Let's see if rating is there on contact. It is not there, so it is showing me an error. What about home phone? This saved up, right? So I can just simply go to my page and say refresh. I do not see any values. Why do I not see any values? Because we have not really told our VF page what record to access. We told it to access the contact object, but which record to access? We can tell that by passing the ID parameter here and passing the record ID of a record. That's why I saved that record, that ID, right? So let's go back and let's go to the query. Let's execute it one more time. And let's say we want to get information from Rose Gonzalez. I'll just take this ID and I'll pass this ID to the URL. How do you do that? This is your basic URL followed by a question mark, and that's where you put all your parameters. Right now, if you see, there's already one parameter that says that this is opened by the dev console because we are previewing it there. If you want to add just one of them, you can simply remove this and say ID equals and paste the ID. But if you do not want to do that and you want to keep whatever is there and you want to pass one more parameter, then you can use the AND or the ampersand sign, and you can say ID equals the record ID. And now when I hit save, this opens up the contact record that's there. So I believe we showed 4 fields: Rose first name, Gonzalez last name, and there's one phone information. The other one might be missing. So you see three information coming up on the screen based on the ID that we passed to the system. So the page is understanding, okay, this is the record ID they've passed and they are looking for the standard controller contact. Let me give them the first name, last name, phone, and the home phone information for this particular record. Cool. That's what standard controllers are for. This can be for, the name says standard controller, but it is not for standard objects only. You can use it for custom objects also. It's just that your custom object would be something like contact lock __ C. So you would have to say contact lock __ C everywhere. You just have to use the right API name. That's all, nothing else. Same as standard. Cool. That was about standard controllers. Let's go back and let's see what's next. Model view controller, Visualforce behind the scenes, right? So Visualforce, the architecture behind Visualforce is simple, and it's not simple, I would say, but it is simply the model view controller model, right? So what you have is, you have 3 things. You have the model, which is nothing but the database, which has to be interacted with. You have the view, which is the Visualforce page itself, and then you have the controller. Based on what we learned right now, it is the standard controller, right? So what happens is, this particular standard controller interacts with the database and sends information to the Visualforce page. right? Whenever a Visualforce page requires any information or wants to be re-rendered, it tells the controller do the same, and it interacts with the database and gets the latest information. That is how it works. So there are three things: the model, the view, and the controller. And I hope you are clear with which is what. The view is nothing but what you see. So what you see is the Visualforce page. The model is nothing but the data model, so that's the database. And the controller is basically the standard code or the custom code. So right now it is the standard controller. Alright, most standard and custom objects have their own standard controller, which is used to interact with the database. And if we need to extend the functionality, we can write our own custom controllers to add functionality that standard controllers do not provide. So if you notice here, what I can do with the standard controller is I can fetch records. I can just say contact, and I can fetch records. And I can fetch information like Apex, page block, and here I can just say Apex page block section, and here I can bring in all my fields, right? What I can do here is I can simply say value equals contact dot last name, right? Let's say I just want to show one field for now, just for understanding. If I go to my screen now, this is not refreshing because now the ID parameter is there. I have to click on the refresh again. So now you see the last name is coming as Gonzalez, and you see now the system is intelligent to understand that the output text has a label and a value. So it's showing me the label last name, and it is showing me the value, whatever I've put as the value, right? So here I can have something like this. I can create my own UI. Right now it is 2 columns. I can change the column information by going to the section, and I can modify that also, right? But I hope you get the idea, right? Now here you have standard controller, right? What if you wanted to show the entire record detail page? How would you do that? You have another tag that you can use. You can just simply say Apex detail, that's all. And what this will do is this will simply show the entire record. You want to see? Let's refresh this page. So you see, just by writing a simple tag, you have been able to fetch the entire record detail page of the contact record that's currently in question through the ID attribute. What is this? This is the entire contact record in the classic view, right? So you see everything is here. And then down below what we have customized by using first name and last name, that's also available, but everything above that is the entire record detail. Okay, what if you did not wanted to see all the related list? Can you handle that? Yes, you can. So if you see, you can say related list equals false. Even that can be done. So you only see whatever is the primary contact detail information. Let's refresh this page and let's see all the related details are gone. All right, but what if you wanted to see the related details? Let's refresh it one more time, but you only wanted to see cases for the contacts. You don't want to see everything else. So what you do is you say related list equals false, and you just say within the detail tag, you say related list equals cases, and save it. Once you save it and you refresh your page, you see that related list don't show up all together. Okay, I don't think we have access to some specific stuff. So let's go and let's say I have to say related list equals true. Let's refresh, or maybe let's get rid of this altogether. Related list equals false, and I think this might not go in here, this might be here. So up after the detail, I want to show my related list. So let's save it one more time, and let's now refresh and see. It is giving me some error, so let's see if I can get opportunities maybe. Save. Refresh. Still giving me the same error, right? So let's go and see how do you set the related list. Apex related list. Every time you're stuck, you can simply go to the documentation and understand how do you show things, right? So if we see here, it says the standard controller is defined and you have the related list equals opportunities. So there's no issue here. What could be the problem? The ID is defined, rendered related list equals, maybe this is the problem. Let's get rid of this and save. Refresh. Still not showing up. Let's try this with a different object. If I go to account and if I want to see contact here, or rather contacts, let's say save. So this is throwing an error. If I go to problems, it says unknown property account dot. Okay, this will not work because this is not a property of the account object. So let's get rid of this. Save. This is saving up fine. And now if I have to pass a ID from the account object, let me get something from the account. Burlington Textiles. It has a contact that's Jack Rogers. So let's just pull this ID. Let's close this and let's now paste this ID here. Because this is a standard controller of type account, I have to switch the ID. It again says insufficient privileges. What's the issue? Let's save it now. Refresh. Nope, it's not working. So related list. What could be the issue here? Nope, something is not working here. Let's close this and click on the preview button again. I have to use the ID attribute obviously. It still gives me insufficient privileges. Not sure why, but let's standard controller is account, and if I want to see Apex detail, let me get rid of the related list for now, and let's see if at least it opens the detail tab, right? Let's go ahead and say refresh now. So it opens the detail tab, right? I see the entire detail tab, which means the data is showing up, but it is not showing me contact somehow. I'm not sure why. So that's okay. We'll take a look at it in a while. But for now, you can simply open the entire record detail by using the Apex detail tag, right? And using the standard controller attribute. Now, any object can be passed here. You just have to have the right API name of the object. Cool. That was about the model view controller and how you can use the standard controller. And as you read here, you can also create your own custom controller, which we'll see very soon. Okay. What's next? Standard controller showing data from standard controller records. So let's take a look at what really happens, or rather what really happens behind the scene. So when the page is loaded, the Apex page component is activated. So if you notice this Apex page tag, this is the Apex page component rather, it is activated, and what it does is internally it activates the standard controller for the object mentioned. So whatever object API name is mentioned, that will be automatically loaded and it will be tracked. Right now, based on whatever are the URL parameters, now in our case we had the record ID, right? The record ID is taken, and based on the record ID, the data is retrieved from the database, and whatever the values are needed on the page are loaded with the values, which is why you see the first name, last name, and all the information based on whatever ID you pass. If you do not pass an ID, it shows a blank page, right? Now the variable used in is same as the API name. Now if you notice, if I have to say something like acc.name, this will not work because I have to use the same variable that is defined here, which is nothing but the collection variable, because it holds the entire information about the record. It is rather the record variable, right? Only then it will work. And what is this particular variable? This is the object variable. This is also called an object variable account. And using the dot operator, you can access each and individual fields that are of the particular object. right? You can do that, and you can use the dot notation, and you can fetch the individual fields for the object, and you can access them. All right. Now, how do you fetch related information? Now, this is what I was trying to do. So let's try to do it one more time. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to fetch related information also, right? Now, before doing that, let's play around with standard controllers and see how do we do all of these things. The first thing is show entire record detail. So if I want to fetch the entire record detail, what did I show you? It was apex : detail. That's all. And this will fetch you the entire detail tag. Refresh. So the entire detail page is showing up, right? And if you notice, because we have show header and sidebar as false, you do not see them on the top. What if I have the sidebar removed? That means it will be set to true automatically, and you will start seeing the sidebar here. Let's refresh. Let's get rid of the show header also. Let's see what happens. Save. And let's now refresh. It's not showing me. Maybe the preview is delayed. Okay, it's not showing me information. Maybe things are a bit delayed, but normally show header equals true is what you would need in order to show the header, right? Let's refresh this one more time, or else we'll move ahead. No, it's not showing up. Probably because this is the detail screen. Let me get rid of this, and let's say hello. Let's see what happens. Refresh. So you see the header is not coming at all now. So there's something here. Cool. Oh, I'm so sorry. We are just previewing it here, right? So it will not show up. It will show up when you are embedded here and you are trying to remove the headers. So it will not show up here on the preview. My bad. All right. Cool. So the first thing was show entire record detail by simply using the apex detail tag. What's the next thing? If you want to see the record detail page without the related list, that is also something we took a look at, right? You can just say apex detail, and you can simply use a attribute, and you can say related list equals false, right? And when I do that, I see the entire record, but I don't see the related lists. I just see the entire record, right? But what if I wanted to see related information? If I wanted to see related information, I could simply use a table. Sorry. And here in this table, I would use the value attribute, and I could simply say account.contacts, because this is how the relationship would look like. Now, if you notice, I have created a page block table. Can it individually exist or survive? No, it will need a page block tag on the top, right? So I'll define that page block tab so that I can get rid of that error, and I'll just encompass my page block table inside this particular apex page block. Let's get this inside in terms of alignment, and now save it. Let's see if this saves up fine. So this is saving up fine now. So what I've done is I've used a simple table component, and what I've done is I've used the object variable account, and I am simply calling the children. So I'm just saying account.contacts. Now what if this was a custom object? I would say contacts__c, whatever is the value. I mean, it could be something else. How do you figure out the value of the children? You can go to Workbench, and here you can log in. And what object are we currently in? We are on the account object, right? So we'll go to the account object here. Where do we go? We go to info and standard objects, and here we go to the account object. Now under account object, you see some options coming up, but you can see child relationships. There are 137 of them, right? Now here, if you see, I have to find the contact relation. So I can just say contact. Let's find contact. So if you notice, there is this relationship contact.account ID, right? The contact is the child, so it has the account ID as parent. So I'll simply click here, and you can notice that the relationship name is contacts, right? And that's why we write account.contacts here. That's all. That's why we are writing this contacts keyword here. All right. And because this is a list, this is a set of records, you have to define a variable to control the iteration on the table. So that's why I've defined a variable that's called con, or I can simply call it a con record, or rather a contact record, right? And what I can do here is I can define columns, and I can use the value tag, and I can say give me con dot first name, and this should work. Alright, there's some error here. Let's see what's the error. It says unknown property. Okay, this should not be con, this should be con record. That's what that's the variable name, right? So I'll say save it now. So this is saving up fine now, and let's now refresh. And if I scroll down, you see I see Jack here in the first name. So my table is shaping up, and it's showing me information about the children records of the parent record that's currently in the context. And that's how you can access related information or related records information. First name and last name. Let me just get these two things, and then we should be good. So you see under this table, you see the first name and the last name of the contact records. If there were multiple records, you would see all of them here, because you are iterating over a value that is a set, and then you are iterating using the var operator or the var variable. This variable is becoming one record at a time, and it is giving you first name, last name, and all the details of the contact record. Cool. All right. So that's how you can use output fields to display individual field values. Okay. All right. Now, how do you display a list of records in Visualforce? This is exactly what we covered using the related list concept. So if you have to display a list of records, you can use page block table, and you can use the column tags, right? But there's one more thing here. Let's see if that's covered later. We'll talk about it just after 2 slides. Okay. So what we just covered was a standard related list, and if you wanted to see multiple children against a single parent, you can use a page block table. You can use the value and the var attribute, and you can use apex column tags to generate every field value from the contact record. Right. Now, what if you wanted to create a user input form? Right. Most of our Salesforce data inputs are just mere forms, right? So how do you create or edit or save records? So you use apex form tags. So you have tags for creating a form as well, and you can simply go to your developer console, and we can do something like this. We'll keep the standard controller as account, and I can simply define a form tag, and under a form tag I can use input fields, because you want the user to input information, right? So I can just say input. So I can say apex input field, and I can use the value attribute. Right, before showing you this, I want you to see things without the ID, right? So let's get rid of the ID and now refresh. So if you notice, the fields are empty now, and you have a form that you can populate, right? So you see that I can create a form here. Salesforce makes sense would be the name, and if you notice, I have the industry pick list, and I have the rating pick list, which means my input fields are smart to understand what data type it is, and input fields are used inside the form tag. And because you have a form defined, this Visualforce page is intelligent to understand you are wanting to create a record. Now, how does it distinguish whether you want to create a record or edit the record? It goes to the page, it loads it, it sees whether you have an ID that you have defined. You don't have an ID, which means it lets you create a new record. But what if you define the ID parameter here? It would kind of understand, okay, you want to edit the existing record, which is why it will come up with all the values of the existing record. So it shows you Burlington Textiles of America with the industry apparel and rating as well. So you can modify the records and hit the save button and update the record. Where is the save button? You can use the save button by using the command button option. So you have something that's called a command button, and I think the value should be save, or rather the action should be save, right? Because that's what we wanted to do, and the value should be create or edit. Let's say save. Okay, now if I refresh my page, you see I'll get the create or edit button, and if I modify this record and I say create edit, it will update my existing record, and it is now opening the account record, and you see you reach here and you see under the details tab that the rating would be hot now. All right, what if you did not provide the ID parameter here? It would understand that, okay, you are trying to create a new record, so I'll just say Salesforce makes sense, industry is communications, and this is cold. I'll say create. This time it will create a record and it will open the account record created. So if you notice, we did not write any kind of custom code, but the action save automatically understood by the standard controller and the record ID not being passed to the URL, that whatever information is filled in this form has to be saved. What kind of record? The kind of record that the standard controller has. Okay, and if you notice, the record has been created, which is of the name SMS, and it has the rating code. Cool. Now what if you had to show some errors? So let's say the input field account name is a mandatory field, right? Do we have any variable that helps us define that? Yes, you have something that's called required. So you can just say required equals true, similar to how we have on the page layout, right? Once I have it required equal to true, you will see that this becomes red now. Let's refresh and let's get rid of, yeah, this is fine. Now if I click on the create edit button, you see you get the error, you must enter a value, right? You see this error on the field level tag. But what if you wanted to have a section to show messages, or rather the error messages? What you can do is you can define another tag that's called apex colon page messages. This is nothing but it holds all the error messages that you get from the form. So even if you see it here, you will see one section popping up and that will show you the error, all the errors that you're facing, right? Let's refresh and let's click on this enter again. Now click on create. So you see now I get this extra pop-up coming up from similar to how you see on classic, that account name you must enter a value. It's not just on the field level but on the top level also. How did we accomplish it? By using page messages tag, right? So Visualforce is more about exploring what kind of components are available, what kind of tags are available, and you can simply use them, right? With minimal coding, we have been able to create records in the system. We have been able to show error messages, and we have been able to set what kind of data we want to feed into our system while creating a record, right? In just 5 lines of code. So that's how powerful Visualforce is. Okay, let's go back and let's see what we can do next. So how would you display a link? We are trying to replicate everything that we see on Salesforce Classic View and mostly Lightning View also. It is not the Lightning experience, but on the Visualforce or the Classic experience, we have created a record, we have edited a record, we have saved a record, we have shown error messages, we have seen static data, and now we want to see how do you display a link, right? So to display a link, again, there's another component you can use. What is that component? You can say apex colon output link, right? And this link can be used by defining the value. I believe there's the target value, right? And here you can define the URL that you want to target. And what's the URL? I can use the URL for function. This is the function I can use within the merge field concept, obviously, and I can just say URL for account.id. I don't think this is the right syntax, and when I don't think what I'm doing is right, I simply go to check it, right? So URL for, and this returns a relative URL in a Visualforce page. Let's see what the syntax is, right? So here in URL for, we have to use the $page dot name of the page. Let's use this first of all, so that it is able to redirect to the right screen. So I want to send this to $page dot my VF, my first VF page, right? And here I want to pass the account ID so that it opens the edit form. Let's try doing that. We can even do this if we want to show the record and we just want to show give a user the link to record and just to view the record. We can use this particular $action global variable also. Let's try using this instead. So what I'll give them as an option is $action.account.view. So they should be able to see the record. And how do I pass the ID? I can simply pass the case ID, or rather the account ID here. So I'll just say account.id. Let's try to save it. So this saved up fine. And can I set a value here? So I can say title link to the record. Let's click on save. Right now, if I refresh my page with an ID, obviously I see the record, but I do not see the link. Why is that so? So then it's not the title tag, it's some other tag that lets you see information. So it should be value, right? So value link to the record. It exists on the screen, but it is not showing any text. That's why it's missing. So now that we have put the value tag, let's refresh and now see. Oh, I still don't see it. Weird. Let's now search for output link and let's see how to use it. Oh, so the target won't be this, it should be, this should be the value. And the target is basically for whether you want to open it in a new window or you want to keep it on the same tab. That is why the target is for. And let's now see if it opens up. Refresh. Still not opening up, right? Let's go back and let's say link here. Save. Let's refresh again. And now I see the link because I did not put the variable. So I believe the title tag also does not work. So I have to put it here in the middle, and now it should show me the link here and it should open the account record. So once I click on the link here, it will open up the account record. So you see the Burlington record is opening up. So if you are stuck somewhere, you can simply go to the documentation and see what's the right syntax, because it is not possible to remember all the syntaxes, right? But it is important to understand what command or what component will let you do what. Okay, cool. What's the next thing? The next thing is standard list controllers, right? So standard list controllers, what we have done as of now, we have used a standard controller which represents a single record, right, using the ID attribute. But what if you wanted to play around with multiple records on your VF page? In that case, you use the standard list controllers, and standard list controllers allow you to display a set of records, but they should be of the same type. You cannot have contact, cases, opportunities all together, 10 records. 5 of one, 3 of one, and 2 of another. No, you have to have 10 records of the same type, so you can have 10 contact records. So standard list controllers allow you to display a set of records of the same type. The standard controller is basically a standard record controller catering to one record at a time, but for a set of records, we use the list controllers. Okay, displaying the list needs a table component with an iteration. And you have something that's called the record set var variable that holds the collection of the records that we can use in our page to display the list of records. How does this work? Let's quickly take a look. So let's get rid of all of this and let's make our standard controller of the type contact. But now if I had to pass the contact ID here, it would open up one record on my VF page, correct? It would open up one record. But how do I give this information to open multiple records? So to convert this standard controller into a standard list controller, I simply have to use one more attribute on my page level, and that is called record set var. And this will contain my con records. I'll say save. This extra variable makes the standard controller a list variable because now the page understands that I have to get all the records for this particular object. Okay, let's get rid of this ID now, and we don't have to work with IDs at all. Now if I refresh, the page is empty, but it is not throwing any error. Let's now create our table. And if you noticed, we have to create a table, right? Because we are showing a list of data. So I'll create a page block because I need a page block to show a page block table, and then I'll create a table. Inside this table, now what I'll have to do is I can just simply say, similar to how we did the iteration on the related list, I will say con records dot first name, right? Con records dot last name. So I can do the iteration like this and save it. But now I have to tell the table that I am doing an iteration over a set of records. So I have to define the value and the var here. So the value would be con records, and the var would be the variable that I want to put here. It would be con. So I'd say con. Similar to how we did with the related list, it's just that we are telling on the page level that we want to get all the records, not just one record based on the ID. Let's see how this looks like. Refresh. So this is showing up records, but I don't think anything is coming up. Why? Because we have just defined it. We have to add them on the column tag, or else things won't show up. So this should be apex colon column, and you have to put the value. Same with the last name. So inside the table, you cannot simply just show things like normal HTML. You have to use the column tags. Let's save this now. And now let's see the updated refresh. Now you see all the records for the contact are showing up. You don't have to worry about one single record, and you have been successfully able to use a standard controller alongside one more attribute to convert it into a standard list controller, and this is why you see the list. Now if you wanted to add a button here for everyone to open the record, you can simply use the output link, right? You could use the output link and you could show that information there, right? And if you want to have more fields, you can add more fields by using the apex column. Make sense? So just by using the record set var, you can create a standard controller and convert it into a list controller whenever you want to work on multiple records, not just one. All right, that was about list controllers. Now coming to custom controllers. Whatever we have done as of now corresponds to doing things on the same object, or maybe a list of records of the same object, and doing things which are pretty much standard and basic, normal CRUD operations, normal UI display and all of it. But what if you wanted to do something custom? You wanted to send an email to all the records selected. You wanted to do a web service call out. You want to fetch filtered data, not all data. How do you do that? You have to go custom. That means you have to write a custom controller. You cannot use standard controller, and the way of doing that is, instead of writing the standard controller or the record set var, you can use another attribute that's called controller, and you can say my VF controller, and this would be nothing but an apex class. I'll try to save it. It will fail because the apex class is not yet created. I'll say file, new, apex class, okay. And now if I go back to my VF page and save it, this should save up fine, right? This is saving up fine. Now what I want to do is I want to get filtered information, right? Would I be able to get filtered information by using a standard controller or a list controller? No, I would need something that's custom, and I would have to query it out. So what I'll do is I'll say public static list of contacts, get contact list, and here I'll say return. I'm just writing a plain circle, select ID, comma, first name, comma, last name from contact where I'll just say limit 5. Let's say that is my filter. I just want 5 records. I'm not able to figure out any other filter for now. So I've just said get contact list, and this will return me a list of contacts, right? The apex class saved up fine, and I'm saving it, and now I want to use it on my controller, right? Now the beauty of having a custom controller and how the variables bind itself is, if you go to the VF page and you have to define a table again, so I'll say apex page block table, and here now I want to provide it a value and a var, right? These are the two things I need to define the iteration. Now I can say that, I want a con record, and I can just say apex column value equals con record dot first name. This is what I know, right? And this should work. But what should I put as the value, right? I have to bind my table with what I have on the controller. And how do I do that? I simply use the name that I've put here. That's all. And I just say this should be contact list, and I say save. And this saves up, and if I take a look at this table now and say enter, I only see first names of the 5 records that came from the query. How did this work? I just said contact list, and what I did was I created a method that's called get contact list, which is nothing but a getter method. This is called a getter method, right? So you have been successfully able to bind your VF page with the controller. Which controller? The controller that is defined here. What it internally does is it tries to load the page. It takes a look at what is the controller. Okay, this is the controller. It sees, okay, the value is contact list. What it tries to do is it tries to see, is there any getter method for this contact list? It finds this keyword exactly, get contact list. So it intelligently understands this is what it has to return back to my VF page, and then it shows all the first names for all the records that come under the variable con record. Right? Now if you have to do things here, you can do things here. Let's say you received all the contacts, you want to send an email to these guys, you can do it here. You can send a call out, you can do it here, right? You can do everything here, and then you can return whatever you have to return to the VF page. Would you be able to do this on the standard controller or the list controller? No, which is where you reach a position where you have to define a controller. And that's basically pretty much the game about Visualforce pages. You have standard controllers, or you have standard controllers with a record set var, that becomes a list controller, or if nothing works with the standard stuff, you simply create a controller, and that's a custom controller. All right. So that was about VF page. Let's see what I have on this custom controller. So it says that it allows you to write custom logic and data manipulation code that standard controllers cannot handle, right? And you can make changes to related records, call a web service, send out an email, and you can do anything that you want from custom controllers because you are on the Apex class. You can write anything that Apex lets you do. And controllers retrieve the information from the VF page. They take the action based on current values. So you can use the current context data to make changes to the database. All right, so that's all I had for the Visualforce page crash course kind of thing. I hope it was helpful. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.